Welcome back to those who've been following our podcast, Context for Chaos, and welcome to those who are just now finding us. I'm Vanessa, a psychic, astrologer, and spiritualist.
And I'm Jessica, a curious explorer with a desire to ground spirituality into everyday human chaos. Right now, we're enjoying spontaneous conversations, but we'll soon focus on topics like love, grief, and purpose, exploring these ideas from both a human and spiritual perspective.
We invite you to follow us on your favorite podcast platform, but you're also more than welcome to join in on the conversation and join us over on Substack. Give us your own stories, add your own thoughts, or ask us to focus on a question or an idea that's been on your mind.
Vanessa and I really like to talk to each other, but community conversations are even more exciting, so don't be scared to get involved. Talk to us if you feel compelled, or just listen in. You'll find more information in the bio section if you're curious.
Let's get to talking and unearth this spiritual context from worldly chaos. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, Vanessa.
This is our first episode with just the two of us.
I think we're alone now.
There doesn't seem to be anyone around. Yes, we are alone now. We are together, and we are on a new adventure with Context for Chaos, talking about spiritual context within worldly chaos. And we wanted to start out with an idea that I have been rolling around in my mind for the past couple of weeks because it's come up in readings, it's come up in my personal life, and Jessica and I have talked about it before. And I thought that this would be a really cool episode to dig into the spiritual context behind worldly chaos of values and what values actually are, how we build them, how we create boundaries through them. And I think we've talked about this before, but just lightly touched on it like way long ago. So I'm excited to bring it back up. And I just wanted to start it out with a question to Jessica and kind of a question to all of you. When I say the word value, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. Your value is like your self building of yourself, and then values is kind of the means by which you do that.
Yeah, I mean, value and values is an archetype, so it can have a lot of faces.
Okay.
When you look at the face of it through like ethics and morality, that is your decision towards the values of a community.
Mm-hmm.
That's Aquarian, right? And you are an Aquarian. It's very what's good for all of us, right? But if you're talking about value, that's more of your own personal journey through life. What you value doesn't have to be contingent upon what somebody else values in order for all of humanity to move forward. You know, you loving chocolate and someone else loving vanilla does not hold us back.
Right.
So values is bigger. It's like a community level where value is you and what you bring into your life.
Okay. Yeah, because S is plural, so multiple entities being bound together by one idea. A value. Okay. Yeah. So it's just constantly changing, right? And it reminds me of that idea that there's so much work that you can only do in relationships
Mm-hmm.
or in relation to others, where, this idea of being whole before you enter into any relationship agreement, it's all BS because there's so many angles that don't even shine until they hit a certain light. And being in relation to others is how you can more aptly define yourself.
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't know. As I have tried and failed and entered and exited many engagements, involvements, entanglements, understand it, because it's so much easier to say what you don't like than what you do like.
The anti-value.
But learning to stand behind, to get behind something positive and to get behind something of esteem
Yeah.
to build yourself up by building the positivity. And like, um, I like me personally, I love being alone. I feel like I really understand and can move in alignment with myself and my values, and like everything's inherent. And then when faced with another person, suddenly that all becomes flexible, malleable, like, or second in line, less, deprioritized under the circums.
Causes compromising.
And so then you start building inauthenticity. You start building a relationship out of a place of inauthenticity because you are abandoning yourself and abandoning your values, or your value, or like negotiating your value because your goal is to see something outside yourself succeed. So you're sacrificing yourself for it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and you know how you just used the word values? It actually equated better to your overall ecosystem. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about values on a moral and ethical level of community, and that's how your mind first went, you just used the word values as yourself. You said your values. So you're saying that I have a set way of being that maybe includes multiple values that helps me move through my world in a sense of positivity, in a sense that I
Yeah.
am receiving back what I need in order to feel good, in order to feel like I want to be here. Right? And how you do that with another person is a different thing, but how you do that for
Right.
yourself is how it informs that other person. Because what you just also described was the perfect kind of storm that happens when you don't really know what your value is, which is when I get into a relationship, I lose my independent values that help me move through the world as a person without a relationship. But once I get into a relationship, I don't know which values to share with someone. I don't know what is valuable about the relationship that's sustainable and lasting. I may know spikes of joy, spikes of good, certain things that I liked
Right.
with this person specifically. Like this person and I had great conversations, but you don't really know the through line, the thread of that value.
Well, and that through line, or that the glue that binds, is more often than not just a meeting of the first, like the top value, which is like love, or like
Yeah.
companionship. And so you're overriding so many things that maybe don't align. And this
Mhm.
is this is this idea is coming from something we'll explore next week around values. The idea that companions whose values align, at least like their top 5. I think there's like 14 values. Don't quote me on that. There
Mm.
are many values that we all possess, and they just kind of move around in order of importance to the individual. And so if my top priority is companionship, partnership, then the odds of everything else getting shirked is high if this person's meeting that top tier need. And so that value can, from what I understand, that value of companionship or partnership can move depending on like how healed the individual
Mm.
is, because it could be rooted in childhood trauma, or a lack of self-esteem, or like an understanding, conditioning that their value is inherent to whether or not they are chosen, or in a relationship. So thus entering a relationship and rendering all your other values like meaningless, eventually that's gonna come out. It's gonna come to light that you have abandoned these other values, and that maybe they don't align with your partner, and that's when you break up.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, so let me give a little bit of context. And I dated a guy who's not listening to this, but I dated a guy and we just dated for 5 weeks. We had incredible sex and we had a lot of connection, which was absolutely amazing. And we talked constantly. We talked for like 5 hours, all like an aphrodisiac. It was awesome, right? But it didn't last, which is totally fine. But looking back over it, one of the things I noticed is how much he was more attuned to what went wrong than what he wanted to go right, or what he overlooks in order to preserve his idea that everybody is either a good or bad person, meaning what someone's behavior is more important to him than their, like, say, their environment that they've set themselves up in. We were talking, so there was, if anybody's watched Love is Blind, there was one moment where Connor, and I forgot the girl's name, she came over to his house and he had like a Christmas tree still set up in the middle of July. There was a keg in the middle of the floor. The lock didn't work on the door. Like, it was so ridiculous. It was like any person would walk in there and make fun of this dude. And obviously, like, we all agreed that she went overboard. But that moment he
Did she
deserved,
cook
okay?
him?
Oh yeah, like it was
No.
kind of awesome. It was
Very
kind of a
good.
big deal. But I was talking about it to this guy I was dating, and he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't care if there was a Christmas tree in there." And I was like, "Why wouldn't you care if there was a Christmas tree?" He's like, "Well, I've had these experiences where somebody loved the Christmas tree and they just wanted to keep it up all year." And I was like, "You can give me a story. There was no story there. There was no he just had a Christmas tree up."
You just never
So
got
you're
around
telling
to
me
it.
that someone's crazy environment wouldn't also inform you of what and who they are. So you don't have a really solid value system. Like, you don't even know why you would choose to overlook this than you would to, like, just say, "Oh, I'm just, I don't care." Like, you have no idea really what it is that you're looking for. And even if it, like, that's that saying of you wouldn't know love if it smacked you in the face kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like that. So I think a lot of people suffer, and myself included, but I have really spent a long time kind of looking at values as myself, like you said, as an independent person, but now building that bridge between me and another person. What are those values that can amplify the relationship and your own sense of esteem if you weren't so addicted or chained to the fear of someone getting over on you,
Mhm.
to the fear of somebody not wanting you because you have too many values. Like you said, if you're at the very top.
Right, rejection in authenticity, I
Exactly.
believe I quote myself from my last breakup,
Yes, exactly,
where I
exactly. So,
apologized.
right? Like, that's what I like, the value that I want to talk about in relationships is, what is it that you're building towards? Do you even know? I mean, you can say you want a big house somewhere, but that doesn't relate to a human being. That relates to what you and that human being are building. That person has to want to build more than just a house with you somewhere. So what is it that you get from each other in the
And, like, what's
immediacy?
important? Is it a relationship like, is it in a house of God? Is it his family a priority? Is activism a priority? Is spontaneity, travel,
Yes,
is like a home, like a life of human, like, creature comforts?
exactly.
And it can be as big as activism or God, or as small as
Eating, foodies.
I realized I love movies. Going
Oh,
to
movies.
movies is
Yes.
so important to, like, it just fills my cup. And if I cannot share that with a partner, then I don't want to. I'm willing to let go of such abundance in other areas if that simple
Mhm.
delight is not met. Like, if it's not important to you to go to a movie or to, like, go with me, then I don't care if the sex is incredible and
Exactly.
our values, like, we are spiritually aligned, logically aligned. If I don't care. I don't care. I'll do art house or Marvel. I don't care, but it is important that I do this thing, and I will do it without you.
Yes, exactly. I'll do it without you. And it's the glue that really bonds you, because if you think about it, like, let's just use a really, really, really easy example. I love cake, right? Let's say I love cake. Valuing yourself, or that self-esteem we were talking about, is saying, I bake myself cakes because I like cake. That's what I like. And then
Mhm.
somebody else comes in and goes, I have a cake that you've never tried. And you're like, I want that cake. Give me that cake. And you both get to eat different, you get to eat each other's cake and stuff like that.
It's
But
like
if that
pouring each
person were to,
other's sake at dinner. We will
exactly,
fill each
exactly.
other's cup.
There is an
I love.
amplification of what you already freaking like. But then also there's this fear that if there's not enough tension, if there's not enough friction, that the love won't deepen further. like that sort of trauma bonding of, I have cake, but I'm not going to give it to you, right? I'm going
Uh-huh.
to eat mine over here, but I do want some of yours. That is not values. That is, oh, actually, no, that is values. Excuse me. That is values. That's another thing. But this is where it gets really interesting, and I'm very curious what you think. Values can look really negative because it's just what you want more of. So if you want someone with cake, that withholding of cake is the more interesting thing than someone just offering you cake, meaning offering you love. If somebody withholding love to you, love from you, is the person that you become more addicted to, or the person that you're chasing, or the person that you feel like, if at the end of this we're going to be completely in love, then that's your value. You value people who withhold from you. And that's where this is where the real mental spiritual shift can happen for people when it comes to relational habits. Is, what is it that I keep inviting into my life, even if it hurts me? If it keeps happening, there's something about this that I value, that I need to reconstruct this value, or I need to address this value, because how am I not being turned on by somebody that has something for me and just wants to give it to me, you know? And I'm not saying like get married or anything like that. I'm just saying like actually just enjoying that interchange of energy. So I think that value oftentimes is always just earmarked for this, oh, I'm going towards a positive feeling, when you don't realize how much you value that is actually working against you, because you don't know how to reframe that.
Wow. I just keep coming back to that, like the misinformed values maybe have come from duress or trauma, or a survival mechanism, or like a stress response, fear response, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, I keep coming back to that. I'm not sure why.
Well, that's maybe the value to prove oneself, right? Because if you're growing under duress, then you have to feel that this love was earned if it's secure, right?
Or like how by manipulating, not manipulating is such a negative word, but manipulating the circumstances to meet your needs
Mhm.
in the ways that you can, especially as if it's like a childhood trauma
Mhm.
that informs like because even as a human you have needs that caretakers
Yeah.
would meet, and if that care is absent, then you learn to meet your own needs through whatever means necessary, and that can inform
Mhm.
the way you move in the world, whether it's scarcity mindset or like addiction or
Yeah.
whatever, escapism, limerence, obsession, avoidance, isolation. Like, let me count the ways, right? And so learning to, and again, only in a relationship can you
Yeah.
discover what your needs are, how you're meeting them, why you're moving the way you're moving. And this is where, and I think this is kind of how we started dishing last week, was if you're showing up inauthentically or underdeveloped, it's a jump scare. And I have been guilty of this, showing up in one light, and then down the road through development, through analysis, through discovery, find out I am not where I said I was. And then jump scare, I have to take accountability for the lack of my needs being met, or the lack of, or my inability to meet your needs,
Mm.
and renegotiate the contract. Because people often, I think it was the I can't give you what you need conversation we were referencing, when people take responsibility for your needs and say they can't meet them, when it's not someone's responsibility. It's just an understanding of, these are my values, this is where I'm at. Here's where you can, here's the motherboard, plug in as you will, and I'll let you know what turns on. But understanding what your plugs are, what your controls are, where you're plugging in and what is being plugged into. It's just like, it's a matter of authenticity.
Yeah.
So how do we find that authenticity independently
Mm-hmm.
of a relationship. And I am so excited to take this values bridge test
Yes.
because it's so like if I walked into that guy's house and he had a Christmas tree and a keg in the middle of the,
I know, right? Roast him.
I'd be like, how
Roast.
dry is this tree? And I'd set it on fire. Like, do you see what he's done? Like, these are the circumstances you expect something to thrive in. This tree is beyond dead. This is a ghost of a tree.
Yeah.
But like, so spatial sensitivity, that is like, that's a value that's so inherent for me. If I walk into a restaurant and the vibes are off, I'm spinning on my heels. I'm out of there.
I know you feel it.
Yeah, I feel that. But then there's such an abundance of people moving through this world with no sensitivity to their space, and that's okay. I cannot work under those conditions. And that's a value, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, like that's you responding to the environment and wanting it to be better and wanting it not necessarily just improvement, but wanting it to be better for your aura.
Because it feeds me to be in the right vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've forsaken that value before and stayed at, just like a house of horrors, not horror. I've remained in a house of horrors
Yeah.
because I was overriding my own values to meet a need in that moment.
You were compromising something that your body did not want you to compromise or your needs didn't want you to compromise. And that's actually so with astrology, that's why the moon represents needs and Venus represents values. Needs and values are two different things.
Okay.
Needs can be just sort of like a primal instinct of something, right? Like this is just what I need in order to feel safe, what I need in order to feel regulated. If you're a person who needs to have a morning where no one's talking, that can be a need. You don't have to value that. That's just like if I want to feel regulated, this is what I need. Period.
Right.
But what I value is what I make into abundance. It's what I want to see get better and better and more of. And not necessarily Jupiter of expansion, but just sort of like the accumulation of something. That's why Venus also represents money. You always want more money, right? Because then that begets more of your worldly experience. You get to do more things. You get to be a part of more things. So when we look at something like value, it's a little bit harder to focus on because needs sound like I deserve that. Values can sound selfish. Values can sound like, oh, I'm judging you, right? If you stay in a house of horrors, probably a part of your sensory board,
I'm being judgy.
yeah, is I'm being judgmental. And so who am I to say what you should?
Well, and now I'm judging myself.
Yeah, you're not listening to your own value of, and that might also be just a need too. Is like I need to feel safe in my house. But a value is I want to be in beautiful spaces. So this is not a space that makes me feel like I'm abundant or loving, or I don't want to be affectionate here. I don't want to pull this into my life. That's why Venus is also manifestation. I don't want this to be a part of my life.
So it sounds like values are clear, or value and values are more clear when looking at it through a relational lens.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if we're looking at it unto the individual, what is value?
Love.
Self-love, self-esteem, dismantling of external constructs,
Accepting yourself, right? Self-acceptance.
accepting yourself. Yeah. Okay.
I love this thing, whether other people do or don't. Like your Venus is in Sagittarius, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Sagittarius values, it doesn't necessarily, you have a Leo moon, so your needs are a little different, still fire signs, but Leo moon may need attention, affection. Sagittarius values wider conversations, macro lenses, travelers, foreigners, so you want to immerse yourself, right? In culture shock.
Oh, yeah.
You want to, you want somebody to bring in more wisdom into your life and make an abundance of that, right? You almost would love to fall in love with a teacher of some kind, like somebody who teaches a wider perspective of the world. but that might not necessarily be your need. Your need is more about attention and about affection, sexuality, because Leo is very sexual, things like that. But that just has to be there. You know what I mean? Like that's just a need. A value is I'm falling in love with you for the things you're bringing into my life, the abundance that you're making in my life, right? So that's why you want to. I love your eyes. No one can see her, but she's
Yeah, I was like, can you hear my eye twitching?
yeah. But that's also going up against what we've been talking about, which is if I don't know these things or if I don't really look into these things, then I'm going to keep prioritizing things that, like you said, maybe the top of it is just being in a relationship at all. And then saying, well, I can sacrifice these other things because when you look at a value, if it's not a need, that means you don't need it to survive. It just means that you're like, oh, well, I don't have
Right.
to have it. It's something that feels good, but I don't have to have it. But that's how you fall in love.
Oh, okay. So, as a practice or as an example, in this last separation, in this last dissolution, I forsook the alignment in values
Mm,
in order to build self-trust and self-esteem. I forsook the values because the relationship was aligned in values because it didn't meet my needs that were inherent.
there you go. Exactly.
While the dynamic, the values are perfectly aligned. This feels expansive. I could just do what we did together,
Yeah.
ad nauseum, but my value, the things that fill my cup and build my self-esteem and make me feel abundant, were neglected by this other. And so I forsook the values of the alignment in values in order to build that self-trust because I didn't want to abandon myself. Even though they're just needs, I said they're valid. I advocated for them. They remained unmet. And so I extricated myself. And that built my value
Definitely.
because I was loving myself and
Yes.
saying that I have that value is real.
Yeah. Yes.
I risked rejection and authenticity by advocating for what felt authentic in that moment, even though all this alignment and like expansiveness and discussion and all the again.
Yeah.
But then so that was difficult because it seems kismet, but then coming out of it, even though it was difficult, my value just went up.
Right. So you're saying this person met your values of communication, talking, but your needs were going
Hmm.
unmet. So like the things that you're like, oh, this is what I want more of. This is what I want to
Yeah.
feel. This is how I want to fall in love. All of that was getting met, but your basic needs
Uh-huh.
of this is nothing to do with me falling in love or not. I need this thing, and you aren't doing that thing. But that's not about love. And that's where I think that's that separation that will probably amplify what you're looking for or like the vision of what you're looking for
Right.
because like you said, your standards have now gone up because somebody gave you what you value. Your idea that it's possible is now there. Like, okay, I've had it once. Somebody was able to meet me at this valuable level.
Uh-huh.
But I also know that values are not what powers me. My needs are. I don't need to feel in love with you in order for my needs to be met.
Right.
Like for me, Moon and Aries, my needs are independence. I need to be independent. But my Virgo Venus wants or feels loved and abundant when it serves and when it observes the world and when it talks and when it's
Mm,
we don't for me to not talk to you, I will feel like we aren't falling in love, but for you to not give me my independence, I have to cut you out of my life because that is a need. Like that's oxygen.
and when you stand behind your needs, you build your individual value
Yes.
because you're loving
Yes.
yourself and you're advocating for yourself
Yes.
and you're trusting your authenticity. You are meeting your own needs and you're not abandoning those needs in order to explore values.
Exactly. You were top heavy, right? Like it's
Top
a
heavy.
tree with no roots. It's like, oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh, I get to enjoy this wind and everything, but I'm falling over because I can't root myself far enough in this in order to stay upright and enjoy all these values, right?
When people talk about being whole, they're talking about these roots. You have to
Mhm.
have, you have to know your value, trust your value,
100%.
feed your value,
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
self-love
Feed
value.
your
And
needs.
then, okay. And then, because the said relationship is values.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Exactly.
You can't show up to protest if you didn't eat breakfast. You become a liability.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Or you're gonna spend 5 weeks, 5 hours on the phone a day for 5 weeks, and then suddenly you're like, I don't think I have what you need. It's like,
Yeah.
because you didn't know what your value was.
Yeah, exactly. I recently had a reading with someone who I asked her, what do you value? What are you looking for? And the first thing that she said was, well, for somebody to say what they mean. And that can sound like a value. I mean, that why not? Because that makes you feel like safety or that more of honesty or, all those kinds of things. But that is building the value off of a negative. So it's saying, I want someone who's honest. Well, yes, fair enough. However, that should be a absolute like non-negotiable. Like that doesn't give you anything else. So the second somebody is dishonest with you is the second that you can walk away. Whether you don't need to say that on a date.
That's your booby trap.
Exactly. Like you shouldn't have to say that on a date. If they show that they are dishonest, you have all right to go. That's a commandments of relationships. If we were going to get to a commandments of relationships, honesty is a commandment. But if that's all you've got, then you really don't know what you want. You really don't know what you value. All you value is not being hurt. All you value is not being had.
Right.
And that leaves you so open to anybody. It could be anyone. It could be anyone. And guess what? You keep getting hurt over and over and over again for multiple different reasons. And maybe that person was honest the whole time. Maybe there was no dishonesty going on, but it still didn't stop you from getting hurt because you don't know what you want. And if you don't know what you want, you can't match yourself to somebody who wants the same thing. Because if that person wants the same thing, it will continue going, even if that same thing is negative. Even if what you want, even though you might not have told yourself you want this, but from, like you said, early childhood traumas, PTSD, you are attracted to someone who treats you in a way that is negative. And that person wants a person who allows them to do that. So that's why you have those relationships that stick around for a long time that are toxic. And you're like, why did they last? But I'm over here building my positive values and I can't meet someone. Guess what? There's a lot more toxic values out there than there are positive values.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to find, I'm sure there's another word for toxic value, but I'm putting it to this because I do want to make sure that it's seen as something you want. Because if you don't say that this is something you want, then you stay in the victim role of it and you continuously find yourself in this situation because you can't admit that this is something that you're attracted to.
It reminds me of like scarcity mindset.
Yeah, seriously. And you know what? I bet you felt, and I did feel, that whatever pain occurred after the last relationship where you got what you were, what you value, I got something that I needed, not necessarily my values, but I got really a lot of what I needed. I would rather hurt over that not working out than some bullshit that didn't mean anything because it didn't link up to either my needs or my values. Because I'm going to be hurt no matter what. But is it
Like
going to
this.
be that I'm hurt?
Oh, when I'm looking at relationships, and I'm like, why do you guys like each other?
And exactly. And my standard goes up, or I have a recognition that my needs can be met, that I'm not too much, that that I can hook with other people, or I keep getting hurt because my ego keeps getting hurt. Why did this person not love me? Why did
Well,
this person
yeah,
not feel this way about me?
if your world understanding remains so big,
Yeah.
that's how big your map is. But the more that you explore and go outward, your map clears and your map expands and you have more space to roam and move, and it just gets bigger. Your world never gets smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, and you stop saying the most easy thing that you can possibly say, which is, "Oh, it must have been me. I must not be good at this. I must not be good at love." That's the most convenient
Ah,
thing that you can possibly say, because then it just makes everything around you, you are the problem towards it.
right.
And it's like you just said, if your world is extremely small and all you base your relationships or your relational interactions on as just like me, just tell me I'm lovable, right? Just tell me regardless of if we're compatible or not, if we really have chemistry, if you treat me well or not, if we both enjoy pickleball or not, or what the fuck ever. Like, you don't
Ah,
look at any of that and you say, just like me. So when you get hurt by that person, your ego is hurt. When if you were loving pickleball, if you were loving the movies, but you weren't getting your needs met, like maybe you wanted a good morning text every morning because that helps you feel secure and I don't know, whatever. Like, but you weren't getting that. Yeah, it hurts that this person is leaving your life, but you went, "Oh, great. There are other people out there who love pickleball in the movies." That's freaking awesome.
yeah, and you're reducing your value to 0 because you're giving the agency unto the other.
Yes, everything becomes about them loving you.
Because if you leave, it's because I'm unlovable. If your value remains at 0 and your map remains small, then you continue to operate under the lack of responsibility
Yeah.
that anything that happens to you, it's almost like procrastinating.
Yes.
Where if I wait to do
Yes.
my homework until the day before, if I get an F, it's because I didn't have time to do it.
Exactly.
It's not because I put my all into it and I said what I needed to say and I did the assignment and then I got an F because I missed the mark completely.
At least you learned something from it.
Right.
And then on top of that, the big leap, and with this, it goes back to that trauma, self-esteem, and how to do this individually, like you were discussing before, outside of relational, is that you have to get past or handle or deal with whatever it can take, years, sometimes for some people, months, it doesn't matter, that you don't belong here, that you are doomed to painful experiences inside of your body for the rest of your life. And that is a really hard stage to get past because, and I got past that stage. It took me a really, really long time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I do not have the same thoughts I used to have. Thank you. But it did take me saying to myself, it doesn't matter what I feel my parents feel towards me. It doesn't matter what I am afraid of will happen if I start to think this way. All I know is that I'm a human being, and if I'm spiritual, one of my commandments is that I deserve to be happy. So I'm going to go by my commandment and not say it's about anybody else and figure out how to move towards my self-esteem, my values, to advocate for those values, to advocate for feeling less intensity in my body, right? Because that's what a lot of people are pushing against is when somebody comes into their life, it calms down the intensity because they can offset it onto another human being. So when you don't have many values, your intensity is your value, or your intensity is what is circulating your system. And it's giving you that jolt of being alive. When your values are you giving yourself the abundance of being alive.
Yeah.
It's saying this is what I want to feel to fill my day when I'm not just surviving, when I'm not just eating, or when I'm not just sleeping, or when I'm not just having sex, or when I'm not all these things. What makes my life beautiful? What makes me happy?
It makes you spacious.
Yes, like if you love sunsets, that's not a need. You don't need to see a sunset to survive. But if you go every single night to see if you can find the sunset, then that's your communion with your reality and saying, I love this.
So values goes beyond necessity.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
That's why the moon is needs and Venus is values,
It's funny
right?
because when people ask me what I do besides work, I'm like, sleep.
I need it.
I'm so excited to look into to do this. Okay, so I have 2 things that we should do and I ask the listeners to do this as well. Listen, I'm going to send you, I'm going to link it in the
Listen
show
up,
notes.
listeners.
There's an episode. Can I swear? Can we swear now?
I swear 2 times already. I counted it.
Okay, cool.
I was like,
because this is going to be hard to talk about without swearing. So I'm going to link in the show notes an episode to Unfuck Your Brain.
Great.
About socialized value. Being socialized, that people socialize as a woman and what that value looks like versus socialized as a man. And then the link to the values quiz that we'll take, which it's 16 values. You just take this questionnaire. It lines them up in order of priority based on your answers. And we'll talk about that because I think this is striking a lot of chords for me personally. And I'm excited to go a little deeper.
Eee!
But this is a great place to start in that values go beyond the necessity, go beyond your needs. They're the things that, because as you're talking, I'm hearing so many things that I've been doing, so much work that I've been doing, but without the context.
Yeah!
That what I was doing was building an understanding of my values, building an understanding of, because in adulthood, coming out of a traumatic childhood where my needs were not met by my caretakers.
That's right.
And then in 6 years of sobriety. So I was 28 years old when I started to attempt to meet my own needs, to keep myself alive in a way but beyond just survival. And so now it feels kind of like I'm like, oh, my sweater has been on inside out this whole time. I've been building an understanding of my values through the little steps of like not abandoning myself in relationships, advocating for myself regularly, understanding my operating systems, advocating for those things, trusting myself, building love for myself in ways that go beyond the fact that I know I'm pretty. You know, like society has told me I'm a beautiful woman my whole life. That doesn't build security with myself. That doesn't build my love or my value because it is a construct put upon me. It's not something I guess I believe it, but it's not something that I believe that feeds me or that keeps me alive.
Well, and but what you're also saying is, I think, the moon, because that's the roots. You're pushing your roots down so far that you can handle joy.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't do you know what I'm saying? Like that's why that saying, you cannot know real joy unless you've known real pain. Because if you don't know real pain, and not that everybody should feel real pain in order to feel joy. It's just it becomes more palpable and more sharp for someone who's felt a lot of pain.
And real pain is not substantiated. Like pain is pain. Pain's subjective.
Yeah, totally.
So you can experience, quote, real pain. Like they talk about this in trauma-based studies, that there's like big T, little t. A lot of people don't ride with that because trauma is trauma.
Right, absolutely.
You can have a perfectly sunshine butterflies rainbow and have a trauma that affects you just as deeply as someone who grew up under the knife.
100%. Yeah. It's very hard to escape trauma. So wherever you're feeling that darkness, that sense of, I don't belong, I shouldn't be here, that's where you're supposed to build your security. Because as a human being, we are no longer animals, and eating and sleeping and drinking water isn't our only necessity. Our necessity, like what you need, isn't what I need. It may be similar because we're both fire sign moons, but what you need is not what I need. However, I need this to survive. Like I said, I need independence to survive. You live alone as well. You need independence to survive. We will sacrifice other things in order to meet this necessity, because if we don't get this necessity, we cannot operate the way we want to operate in the everyday world, right? Where your Venus is what's growing above the ground, and it's only as high as your roots can go deep. So the more you secure yourself and tell yourself, I love beautiful things, I need it, as a regulating force. I need that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I love different aesthetics. So I would love to go see other people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't need that. That's not my need, but I love other people's perspectives on beauty. You don't need that to survive. You need beautiful in your house to feel regulated.
Yeah.
But in the outside world, it is an added. It is the wind in the branches of your trees. It is, I get to feel alive because I get to go see all these other beautiful things.
Haven't I been screaming about the lack of architectural interests on the West Coast?
Yes,
Like, I don't even like
exactly.
looking at anything out here.
Exactly. So for you, it's like, I want to put beauty out here. I want to put love out into the world. Then that is how you do Venus.
Okay.
But how you secured yourself, you're like, you know what? I can live where I live. I don't find a lot of inspiration here. I don't feel a lot of my Venus showing up here. But the way I built my home and how I decorated and what I did to live alone, that meets my needs. So I can move through this and hopefully beautify some things further out if I want to. But I can handle it because I'm meeting my own needs.
So I'm looking at the discomfort, I'm going into the discomfort, and I'm digging the roots deeper, fortifying myself
Yes.
in order to
Handle joy.
build that capacity for abundance. Yeah, because I'm not afraid
That's
of the
exactly right.
Mm.
We've been talking a lot since you've gotten to Hood River, and it's been so awesome to watch you reject things, even if you don't really know why you're rejecting it, because you're building so much security for yourself that it's harder for you to say that you can handle not feeling love as well. I have enough of my own security. I don't have to live with anybody else. I'm not my finances aren't contingent upon someone else. I am completely, I've made my life to be what it needs to be. So why would I accept something that depletes my love and my value? Why wouldn't I want to expand on this? Because those people who live in houses of horror or chaotic situations, a lot of times don't have very deep roots. So they can't even think about what love is or beautiful unless it's something that takes them away from their chaos. And then that becomes those toxic values, right? Because it gets them out of their responsibility to secure themselves. So you're taking it as a responsibility to yourself. You're saying, you know what? Nobody else is going to do this for me. I have to do this for me. It's going to make you more intimidating to other people.
It's going to increase my value so that low value people do not have access to me.
That's exactly right,
Ah.
Jessica. That's exactly what it is. And it's intimidating. It really feels scary at first because you think that you're taking away something from people to come and bring you love. When in actuality, you want them to bring you the stuff you want in the first place. So how are they supposed to know?
Because I would prefer ripe fruits of my labor, thank you.
Exactly. If I am making, this beautiful life, you better be bringing me a beautiful life.
Yeah, no assembly required.
Exactly. And now when it comes to relationships, that's like the descendant and which is the opposite of the ascendant. And that's when somebody brings something into your life that you find hard to generate yourself.
Right.
For you, it is again Sagittarius, but what you're supposed to do, what we've been talking about and what I think you've been doing is saying, I'm going to build, and what we're doing with this podcast, I'm going to build my own storytelling narrative of wisdom. And I would love for somebody to come into my life and bring me more of that. But I'm not going to wait for that to happen. I'm not going to make that something that somebody can fully take away from me. And maybe that's one of the reasons that last relationship hurt, was because you were able to share in wisdom that you might not have given yourself permission to feel without another person.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you cultivate it yourself, the more the relationship becomes built on what is special about the two of you, the uniqueness of the two of you, and not just these sort of foundations, because that's your foundation. It's yours, Somebody can amplify it, but they can't take it. And so now it's about, oh, I love the way that they laugh, or this is a special thing that it becomes more bonding than it does contractual. So the contract is you better be bringing me wisdom. But even if we ended this contract, I still have what I've built of my own wisdom and my desire to have these conversations with or without you.
Love it. This has been such a good jumping off point.
I think so.
We're just jumping up and down on the diving boards like, wee. Okay. I'm excited to jump. This is good. That's a great understanding of values to establish and value. I feel confident. This is we're ending in a totally different place than where we started. And that's why we're here. It's to just kind of like, we're just shaking out the rugs, right?
Yes.
We're all
you
here.
can see now, spirituality does not live outside of you. It's concepts that you need to digest. They need to be made, it starts with an M, marinated or macerated? Macerated, maybe? It needs to macerated.
Masticated.
Masticated. Yeah, you got to chew. You got to chew and you got to chew so that you can eat it. And if you eat it, that's medicine. That's also what it means by knowledge is power. If you don't fully understand what you're doing, you can't give all your power to it. And that's really the authenticity, because you've got to stand behind what you're doing. If you can't stand behind what you're doing, it doesn't have as much force.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, pass the salt. If anyone out there is listening.
Please be listening.
If anyone out there is listening, and I hope you are, unfuck your brain. Link in the show notes. Listen to that. Give it a listen. Come back next week.
Pass the salt.
Send in. If this is clicking for anyone, let us know how. You can send us a little email. You can leave a little note on Substack. It'd be cool to hear about it.
Yeah.
How is this making sense to you? Why is it making sense to you? Even if you just want to spill the tea. Even if you just want to tell us.
Oh, spill the tea. Yeah.
Your horror stories. If it's just for our entertainment, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't
and
have
where
it
you
doesn't
found
have to be
value.
shared.
Yeah. Totally.
Mhm.
Anything.
Mhm.
We love talking to you guys.
This is a safe space. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. And until next time, as above, so below, blessed be.